A 70-year-old man, once the most powerful chancellor in Chinese history, is dragged in chains toward a raised wooden platform. His face is marked with tattoos, his nose is gone, his toes have been severed, and his body is covered in lash wounds. This is Li Si, the architect of the Qin dynasty, the man who helped Qin Shi Huang conquer all warring states, standardize writing, currency weights and measures, and build the framework of imperial China. Today, he is not a statesman. He is a condemned criminal, sentenced to suffer the 5 punishments, and then be executed by waist cut, with his entire family, 3 generations slaughtered alongside him. This is not just the end of one man. It is the death rattle of an empire that once ruled the known world with absolute power. Let us pull back the curtain on one of history's most chilling political tragedies, a story of ambition, betrayal, torture, and fatal miscalculation that still echoes across 2,000 years. Li Si was not born into power. He came from a small town called Shanghai, in the former state of Chu, living a quiet, ordinary life as a low-ranking clerk. Early on, he made an observation that would define his entire life. He saw rats in the public toilet, dirty and scared, and rats in the grain store, plump and safe. He realized that a person's fate, like a rat's, depends entirely on the environment he chooses. This ruthless logic drove him to leave his home study under the great philosopher Xunzi, and master the art of governance and legalism, a philosophy that placed absolute authority in the ruler and strict, unforgiving law above all else. In time, he made his way to Qin, the rising military powerhouse in the West. He caught the eye of Liv Buwei, then the regent, and later impressed the young Yingzheng, the man who would become Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. Li Si's talent was undeniable. He wrote the Jianzhu Qishu, a brilliant petition that convinced the king not to expel foreign talents, a decision that kept Qin's government strong and capable. As the king conquered one state after another, Li Si rose through the ranks, becoming Minister of Justice and eventually Chancellor, the highest official under the emperor. For decades, Li Si was the invisible hand behind Qin's unification. He argued fiercely against dividing the empire into feudal states, pushing instead for the commandery and county system that became the foundation of Chinese imperial administration for centuries. He oversaw the standardization of Chinese characters, ending the chaos of different writing systems across the former warring states. He unified currency and weights and measures, creating a single economic system that tied the vast empire together. He helped design the emperor's title, the rituals of the court, and the harsh legal code that kept order through fear and strict punishment. Li Si was not just the servant. He was a co-creator of the Qin model of governance. He enjoyed wealth, status, and the absolute trust of the most powerful man in the world. For nearly 40 years he stood at the center of power, living out the dream of the grain store rat he had admired as a young man. But every empire has a breaking point, and every ambitious man has a fatal flaw. For Li Si, that flaw was an obsession with holding power at all costs, a refusal to sacrifice his status for moral principle. The disaster began in 210 BCE, during Qin Shi Huang's 5th and final imperial inspection tour. The emperor fell seriously ill at a place called Shakyu, far from the capital. Knowing his death was near, he wrote a secret edict, ordering his eldest son, Fu Su, to return to Xianyang to oversee his funeral and inherit the throne. Fu Su was a wise, moderate prince who had criticized the emperor's harsh policies and been exiled to the northern border to serve with the general Meng Tian. The edict was sealed and given to Zhao, the emperor's chief eunuch and head of imperial secretariat, who was supposed to send it to Fu Su. But Zhao had other plans. He was the private tutor of Hu Hai, the emperor's youngest and most foolish son, and he knew that if Hu Hai became emperor, he could control the throne and rule the empire himself. The only obstacle was Li Si. As Chancellor, Li Si was the only man who could authenticate the emperor's edicts and legitimize a change in succession. Zhao approached Li Si with a ruthless, calculated pitch. He reminded Li Si that Fu Su was close to Meng Tian, a general who had long competed with Li Si for influence. If Fu Su became emperor, Zhao argued Li Si would lose his position, his power, and possibly his life. Li Si, the man who had built an empire on logic and self-interest, faced the choice of his life. He could uphold the late emperor's will, honor his duty, and risk his own status. Or he could betray Fu Su, ally with Zhao and keep his power. After days of internal struggle, Li Si chose power. He agreed to join Zhao conspiracy. Together they forged a new edict in the dead emperor's name, accusing Fu Su of disloyalty and Meng Tian of incompetence, ordering both to commit suicide. They sealed the emperor's body in a ventilated carriage, hid the stench with bags of dried fish, and rushed back to Xiangyang as if nothing was wrong. When they returned, they announced Hu Hai as the second emperor, and Fu Su and Meng Tian killed themselves as ordered. The Dune conspiracy was complete. Li Si thought he had secured his future. He was wrong. He had made a deal with the devil, and devils do not keep promises. Zhao Gao had no intention of sharing power. He saw Li Si as a threat, a brilliant, experienced statesman who could expose his treachery and challenge his control over the young, weak emperor. In the years that followed, Zhao Gao slowly tightened his grip on the court. He encouraged Hu Hai to live a life of luxury, indulgence, and cruelty, telling him that the emperor should not be bothered with trivial governance. He convinced Hu Hai to kill his own brothers and sisters, eliminate loyal ministers, and enforce even harsher laws to crush any dissent. Peasants, crushed by heavy taxes and forced labor for the Great Wall and Epang Palace, began to rebel. Chen Sheng and Wu Guang launched the first major uprising, and the empire began to unravel. Li Si, alarmed by the chaos, tried to advise Hu Hai to ease oppression and calm the people. But Zhao Gao had set a trap. He arranged for Li Si to petition the emperor when Hu Hai was drinking and entertaining concubines, angering the young ruler. Then Zhao Gao struck the fatal blow. He accused Li Si and his son Li Yu, a regional commander, of colluding with the rebels to overthrow the dynasty. It was a lie, a complete fabrication, but Hu Hai, paranoid and controlled by Zhao Gao, believed every word. Li Si was arrested and thrown into a dark, filthy prison. Zhao Gao personally oversaw his interrogation, using brutal torture to force a false confession. Li Si was beaten thousands of times, his body broken by whips and clubs. He refused to confess at first, so Zhao Gao sent dozens of men pretending to be imperial inspectors to test him. Every time Li Si tried to proclaim his innocence, he was beaten nearly to death. When the real imperial inspectors finally arrived to verify the case, Li Si was too terrified to speak the truth. He thought they were more of Zhao Gao's men, so he falsely admitted to treason. Hu Hai, naive and ignorant, thanked Zhao Gao for uncovering the plot. Li Si wrote desperate petitions from prison, listing his 7 great achievements to the emperor, begging for mercy. But every letter was seized and burned by Zhao Gao. No one would hear his voice. The sentence was handed down. Li Si would suffer the 5 punishments, the most cruel penalty in Qin law, followed by execution, by waist cut, and his entire clan, 3 generations, more than 100 people, would be executed with him. The 5 punishments were not a single death. They were a slow, agonizing destruction of the body. First, tattooing the face to mark a criminal. Second, cutting off the nose. Third, severing the left and right toes. Fourth, being beaten to death with bamboo sticks. Fifth, having the head cut off and displayed in public. For Li Si, after enduring all these tortures, he was still alive when he was dragged to the market square for the final execution waist cut. This punishment, reserved for the worst traitors, split the body into 2 at the waist, leaving the victim conscious and suffering for minutes before dying. On the day of his execution, Li Si was chained next to his second son, who was also condemned to die. As they walked toward the platform, Li Si turned to his son, tears streaming down his bloodied face, and spoke the most heartbreaking line of his life. He said, "I wish I could go back to Shanghai with you, leading our yellow dog out the east gate to chase rabbits. Can we ever do that again?" In that moment, the great Chancellor, the architect of empire, the man who had ruled millions, wanted nothing more than the simple, peaceful life he had left behind decades earlier. The crowd fell silent. Then, the executioner raised his heavy blade, and in one brutal strike, Li Si's body was split in 2. His life ended in agony, his legacy stained by betrayal, his family wiped out entirely. Li Si's execution was not just the end of a man. It was the end of the Qin dynasty's rational governance. With Li Si dead, Zhao Gao became the de facto ruler, putting on the farce of calling a deer a horse to test who dared oppose him. Hu Hai was later killed by Zhao Gao, and the last Qin ruler surrendered to rebel forces just 3 years after Li Si's death. The empire that Li Si helped build collapsed in flames, and chaos destroyed by the same tyranny, betrayal, and cruelty that had killed him. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.